Hey, read through the word. Today is August 18th, and today's lesson is called Gone. Gone. We are in Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 10. It really is all of chapter 10, but I'm looking at verses 18 and 19. So, this is where we are. It says this: Then the glory of the Lord moved out from the entrance of the temple and hovered over the cherubim. And as I watched, the cherubim flew with their wheels to the east gate of the Lord's temple. And the glory of the God of Israel hovered above them. And so Ezekiel watches the glory of God depart the temple. Okay, so I think I meant to look this up. So y'all are better at finding this stuff than I am. I think I remember talking Ezekiel saw the wheel. So that might have been where I went with this last year. And of course, you see the four faces and the four direction, where some of you remember from 2 years ago when we looked at the tribes of Israel going through the desert after during the wilderness wanderings, and it also ties into Revelation as well. So some of you might remember that and go back digging. So I want us to look at this right here. We are so, now some of you, like, you just can't wait because we're almost to the New Testament. Let's see, it's usually, I think it's like 3 weeks into September. Yeah, I think it is. All right, 3 weeks in September. So we're looking at about just over a month till we're into the New Testament. Can you believe it? Here we are. Okay, so we're at this section right before the exile. So I want us to stop and consider a few different things here. So right before the exile into Babylon, Judah has lost sight of the fact that God doesn't limit himself to one place. Now, as much as, if you think back, and as many times as I say this, that God's people have a place and a position and a purpose, that they get so tied to the idea that the temple is the only place God can be. I mean, that's what they teach. Jeremiah has some to say this, trying to tell the people that's not true. And there's a huge truth that God is teaching Judah here, if they would but listen. And it's key, and it's one of the things that we always look for. Now, see, they're about to experience the judgment of God, being sent into exile. They're watching all of these things happen. But I always tell my students at school, or any class, or with you here, that every time you see the judgment of God, always look for his mercy. Because his mercy is evident there as what always, if we were to but look. I had a discussion this morning with my oh goodness, which class was it? I think it was my English 1. I have an English 1 honors class, and we were talking about all my classes like to ask me random Bible questions, and we were talking about the Garden of Eden, and I was just talking about whenever you see the same thing, just like there, about two choices, and we're discussing story arc and conflict and what that looks like. And I said, we see that in the Bible, and that's how they got started with it. I said, you see conflict in the Bible, and you see that with Adam and Eve have two choices: obey God, and they had the tree of life and disobey God and eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I said, there's conflict right there already. So this idea of conflict and how it shows up in story, and God teaches through story, and that's why we look at literature and all that. So that's where we're going with all that. And I said, always look for mercy, God's mercy. It's evident everywhere. But we so look at, we think somewhere in the back of our mind, we still keep thinking that the God of the Bible is like the God that the world has made up. Like Zeus on Mount Olympus with sitting back there just waiting to throw a lightning bolt down on you and mess your life up. So we always think judgment. Excuse me. And it is, but our God is a God of mercy. And so always look for that too, because his mercy that he extends, mercy and grace that he extends to us. I want us to see that right here too. That we always think the glory of God departs the temple. The glory of God departs the temple, but there's mercy in that. There's mercy in that. What I want us to see is that, now yes, the temple is there because God has chosen his people and his place to dwell among them. And his presence was felt in a very special way in the temple. And so it was there for a purpose. But it was not the only place that God could be. But during the time of the ministries of Jeremiah and Ezekiel, the people felt that God could never leave the temple. That's one of the reasons, if you look back through Jeremiah, that's one of the reasons they keep saying to Jeremiah, there's no way the temple could be destroyed. Because it cannot be destroyed because God lives there. And he can't leave. That's his home. He can't leave. So if he can't leave, it can't be destroyed. So you're lying. We don't believe you. We believe the false prophets. Go back and look. That's what they're saying. But what Ezekiel's vision does show is it told Judah that God could leave the temple. If this vision sees God leaving the temple, that means the temple can be destroyed. And so everything that Jeremiah had been saying is true. You're like, okay, where's the hope in that, Lisa? Here's the thing. If the Lord is not limited to the temple, then he could go with the remnant into exile. He could be with them. And he could protect them. And spoiler, that's exactly what we see played out in the book of Ezekiel, what we see in Daniel, what we see in Esther. All of that is God is with them in their exile. Because he never abandons his children. And that's what we see is that I always think, I say every book of the Bible and everything's my favorite, but Acts, I don't have it with me. Okay, it's Acts 17. So we're going off. Look this up. Acts 17 around verse 26. Go look this up. I'll put it in your notes. But I don't have it in front of me right now, so I'll put it in your notes. And it's Paul at Mars Hill, or the Areopagus in Athens. And he's discussing, and he says that our God is not a God that can be bound by human hands, nor is he a God that depends upon human hands to take care of him. I always think of this. Our God is not a God that needs us to. I always think of the false statues you see sometimes in different places that are to Buddha, and how people put food in front of him, and then the story is that it's gone the next day. That God, that statue, needs people to feed it with human hands. Well, the belief that God, that the God of the Bible is only held by the temple and can't go anywhere else. No wonder they think that the temple can't be destroyed. No wonder exile scares them. They're going to be alone. But they're not. That's exactly what Ezekiel's saying. They're not going to be alone. Their God is with them. And this is an idea that was foreign to them. They just did not believe that. And so what we see here is that God never abandons his children. And this is the truth. Can you imagine the idea that indwelt by the Holy Spirit, that the Spirit of the living God indwells the believer? Whoa. So, when Jesus comes with that, but this idea is what is this truth that is the life of the Christian now that we know is coram Deo, which means before. The actual wording means before the sight of God. It's the belief that as Christians, our God is not in a building somewhere, that we live life all the time in the presence of God, under the authority of God, into the honor and the glory of God. This was an idea that the people of Judah would have never understood. As much as departing from the temple is the part of the judgment, it's also the mercy of God and the truth of God's love for his children. He will not abandon them. And when they're sent out of the land, he goes with them. God is near to us. And may we live like that and remember it every day. Coram Deo. We'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.